Welcome to Mighty Car Mods. One of the most common questions we get here on the show is what tools do I need to work on my car at home?
So we are going to run through 5 levels of tools, from the most basic setup to start working on cars right through to a fully equipped home workshop where you can do some awesome mods.
Now, over the years, we have worked on hundreds of different cars in hundreds of different places. We've worked on franchises for Fast and Furious, Need for Speed, Call of Duty, Transformers, and we've ended up in a lot of strange places, from fully equipped workshops to even on the side of the road. We've done drag cars, we've done street cars, we've done drift cars, we've done off-road cars, sometimes even drift cars off-road.
Those poor mannequins.
Okay, people, let's kick off with level 1.
You want to work on cars, you're going to need some tools. Now, if you're starting completely from scratch, it can be a good idea to get yourself a kit that comes with a bunch of tools. This is a good example. This is a Tool Pro X 168-piece kit. This comes with stuff that's going to cover you for most of your basic modifications and servicing work. You've got wrenches, you've got spanners, both in imperial and metric. You've got a whole bunch of sockets, extensions, even things like bits, so you can do some of those little jobs as well. Screwdrivers, pliers. You can start with a more basic one. You can go even more fancy than this if you want to, but there are lots of versions of this that will help you get started.
Now, the great thing about this kit as well, it has a lifetime warranty, and these little pins here pull out, and you can actually keep using this forever in your toolbox. It'll slot in there. In fact, we've got 2 of these up here on our Workbench and Super Garage. There's one over there, there's one over there, so it is definitely something that can grow with your garage. The other thing that I think is absolutely mandatory for level 1 is making sure that your Pride and Joy actually looks good, and it doesn't need to cost a whole lot of money. You can get yourself a bucket, some car wash, get yourself a sponge, and then a chamois or something to dry your car safely that's not going to scratch it, and you can make sure your car looks awesome. That there will probably let you wash your car about 50 times for the same price as one professional car wash. So you've got your basic toolkit, you've got your bucket, your sponge, and your wash. People, let's move on to level 2. You're at stage 2, people, and you are leveling up because now you're adding a power tool to your setup. And if you're only going to get one, an adjustable impact wrench is the way to go. This is a RYOBI 1 Plus HP, comes with replaceable batteries, torque settings on the front that you can change, and while you can adapt the front of that to do a bunch of different tasks, ideally you want to pair that with an impact socket set. So this is for doing big stuff. We're talking wheels, we're talking tires, we're talking suspension. And once you take those bolts off and you want to put them back on, your service manual will probably have certain torque settings, which is why we'd suggest getting a torque wrench as well. And sometimes using tools like this can be noisy, and you want to protect your ear balls. We make some Mighty Car Mods ear muffs. You want to protect your eyeballs and, of course, your hand balls.
And now that you've leveled up, you can attack some bigger jobs. An easy one to start with is changing your oil. And to do that, a set of jack stands, a jack, a filter wrench, and a funnel is going to make that job a whole lot easier. Also, you'll need some oil. We're on this one.
You and I have seen oil changes from $79 up to almost $1,000 depending on the car and depending on what's required for that particular service. You could buy all this stuff potentially for less than one service at a shop, right?
Absolutely, you can. And depending on the age of your car, you might not be so worried about warranty. Maybe your warranty's expired, none of that really matters as much. But yeah, these basics will get everything you need to do an oil change. Unless your car's got the kind of system you've got to suck the oil out of, that's a whole different podcast. But this is everything you need to get started and to be comfortably in level 2.
Do you know what I'm excited about, Martin?
Oh, so many things.
But do you know what I'm really excited about?
No, you should tell me.
We're about to hit level 3.
Congratulations, you've made it to level 3. It's an exciting place to be because it's time for your very own tool chest. This is where you can put all your tools, you can organize them properly, and importantly, you can stand there and stare at it and just admire it for a time. But in here, you've got a whole bunch of drawers. It's a really nice way to organize everything. I like to label it as well, so if you've got mates over, they know where stuff is. You've got screwdrivers, in our case, multi-grips, a set of spanners. Again, this is similar to our original toolbox, and you can put that in here, and you can put all those tools in as well. Adjustable stuff, you can put all the little adapters and all those little things that you find yourself needing. This is the kind of tools that if you find you need it, you buy it, you use it forever, you never get stuck in that situation again, which is my theory. Also, extras like
Euro stuff, Martin. So if there's a particular kind of tool or particular kind of bolts and stuff that's happening on your car, this is where you can start to lay out specific things that you need. We do a bit of Volkswagen stuff here, a bit of Audi stuff, and so that means you need certain weird toolage as well.
You might find yourself needing long sockets, also very handy. They don't usually come in the initial kits that you get, but you might find that they come in really, really handy. And again, hex stuff. You've also got spanners. You can look at specialty spanners as well. Things for doing A-end fittings when you start to level up. Again, things that you might run into. Good to have a big selection of pliers and cutting things. You might only need a little one, but you might also need a big one. So get both. And you've got your mad tool chest to put them into.
And over here, Martin, this also, sometimes just changing your oil means you might need to pop off 20 or 30 different caps. So getting a wide selection of different trim removal tools is also really, really handy. And then Martin, by now, things might not be going perfect.
Correct.
Which
Often
means
happens.
you need a pry bar and a hammer. And then you think to yourself, well, I only need one pry bar, one hammer. Martin, usually you're using two. So you're getting one in there, welling off. Let's go down here into some of the bigger stuff. I guess we could call this stage 3.5.
I think also the other thing it's worth noting, this is actually two toolboxes. So you've got this top chest, but also the roll cab underneath it. Some people like to start with roll cabs, some people like to start with these. Personally, myself, I got a top chest like this. I was very excited when I first got it, started to populate it with tools, and what happens? You run out of space. A roll cab is great too because you can drag it around your garage or your workshop or wherever you are to get it close to your car, which I recommend you do. This is, again, you've got a bit more space for bigger stuff, specialty tools that might just fit your particular car only.
You should use this if you own a Subaru. That's Subaru oil, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Which means that's never been used.
Also, don't be scared to farm stuff out of the toolbox. If you find that it sits in there forever and you never use it, give it away, sell it. You can there's no rules saying you've got to keep everything forever, but pretty much everything in here gets used very, very regularly.
I need those in a minute. Thank you, Martin. All right, what about down here? I want to see the things that hit things.
Yeah, so we've also got hole saws and things like that, but of course hammers. Also put the heavier stuff lower down in the drawers. You do not want these things to fall over, so I like to put the bigger, heavier stuff in the bottom. We've got hammers. You will invariably need them in your career of working on stuff.
Which means it is time to add another power tool to your collection. So drill like this, it's a great way of being able to adapt lots of different tools because in here you can even run, if you just need to do light stuff, you can put sockets on the end of there, you can drill holes, again, uses the same battery system, which is excellent. At this stage, we also want to use our eyeballs to see what is going on. I don't know what the technical name of this is, but we call this the RYOBI bendy light because it is a light that can bend. The top articulates, that hangs off things like that, so it means you can put it underneath your bonnet like that.
Or you can put one on your head. This also works pretty well, particularly working in the dark a lot. Or you do like forward driving and you end up in some muddy bog hole in the middle of the night fixing your car.
Now, hopefully by now you might be also moving into some electrical jobs, so that is maybe speakers, head units, things like that, which means you can get a really basic kit, which can consist of a soldering iron, some heat shrink, a multimeter, some wire strippers, the basic associated things and accessories that go with that, and then also a heat gun, which can obviously heat up your heat shrink instead of just using a box of matches or a cigarette lighter. And you also might be at the stage that you want to start trimming some plastics to fit pipes or other things, so a rotary tool is a great way of doing that. It's a really great way of just being able to fairly safely compared to some of the issues that can come into using an angle grinder. You can make little cuts, trim things. There's stone wheels, there's cutting wheels, there's buffing tools. There's two more little bonus things over here though, and that is Mighty Car Mod's fender covers. So this here, come with me actually people, come with me just over here to see this. This, if you're working on your car a lot, basically will just keep it protected when you are spending a lot of your time like this, particularly if you've got keys in the pocket, you've got phones in your pocket, it just stops you rubbing on your fenders. And then when you're taking things out of your car, where do you put them, Martin?
In a magnetic parts tray. This is a really good way to not lose stuff. Firstly, you've got a steel toolbox, it'll attach to the toolbox, it'll attach the steel panels on your car. I don't recommend you do that. Or anything like around the workshop. You might just want to chuck them in here. In our case, every time we take wheel nuts off a car, they go into one of these because there's nothing worse than finishing your build and going to put the wheels on and you're missing a wheel nut.
Regardless of what level you're at, another really important aspect is being able to mark, measure, and cut basic things around your garage. So we've got this mark and measure drawer here, and that's where you'll find things like texters or Sharpies for marking out different things. We've got rulers, we've got vernier calipers, there's blades, and then over here on our workshop bench, we also keep a bunch of Mighty Car Mod's tape measures as well. They're really handy, you end up using them. Even if you're level 1 doing the most basic things, it can help you do a bunch of handy tasks around your car, house, and garage. And do not forget your cable ties. Even level 1, these can be a lifesaver. We've got Mighty Car Mods ones available on the Mighty Car Mods shop right now. Most of you are probably like, that's pretty much everything I need. But a few of you, you're like, I'm hungry. It puts the spanners in the bucket. You want more. You want more dripping chicken. Just dripping straight down the eye of the tornado. And as such, it's your lucky day, people, because it's time for level 4. You have landed, people, on level 4. And regardless of how wicked you may be, your tools will not defy gravity. They will end up sitting all over the place. And to do that, you need flat space. That's right, you're going to need a workbench. Now, the cheapest, easiest way of getting a workbench happening yourself is to make one out of wood. I've actually made a DIY up there, a tutorial which shows you exactly what you need to do, and it's great for all sorts of tasks. Alternatively, you can just use the top of your tool chest, or you might need something a little bit more weighty.
This is my favorite kind of workbench. It is solid and it's portable. This also doubles as an excellent way to move big, heavy stuff around, be that engines, be that tools, be that another portable workspace. It's solid enough to bash stuff on and very, very durable.
Hey Martin, can I just use this though? Because I can like get one of these for like 50 bucks.
I would say they are great for temporary storage, but they're absolutely useless as a workbench, and I have had them fold up more than once.
Martin, run us through this system here, because your home garage and here and those shelves over there, we got 3 slightly different systems,
Correct.
but all similar. Run us through the lowdown of how you set this up, because this is freaking awesome.
This stuff is great for a couple of reasons if you have the space for it. A lot of warehousing businesses will throw this stuff away, give it away for free, or you can buy it very, very cheaply secondhand. It's a racking system. It's designed to store pallets, but it's very, very heavy duty. And for what we want to do, it's great. We put a bit of support through here. We put some big, heavy duty wood on there as well, and you end up with a really good space. And as a bonus, you can also store stuff. It's an easy way to hang lights and chargers, as we've done here. Now,
And replace it. And you can replace the top of it, like when it gets thrashed.
You can paint it.
Quick question, Martin.
What's that?
Why is there so many Daihatsu engines on
There's so many Daihatsu engines, man.
Is that?
I don't know.
Okay, sorry, as you were.
If you are in a garage and you want to go slightly lighter duty, you can use the same kind of system. This is actually a medium duty shelving system. It's basically the same concept. You can get it in different depths, which is great. So you might only have 400 mil of space where you've got time to work. You might have 600, 900, or even as big as 1.2. This is really, really good stuff. All my home benches at home are made with this. You can set the height exactly where you want your workspace to be. I just add a couple of extra layers of what is essentially flooring. It's a really cheap and really easy way to make an excellent storage system and bench.
If instead of kind of getting a rolling tool case and then something on top, you can actually get multiples. These here are Mighty Car Mods by Tool Pro. They were a limited edition they had at Supercheap Auto. They're not available anymore. But down this side of the workshop, we've just laid down a few of them. There used to be 5 or 6 of them, but we needed room for the air compressor, something we're about to speak to you about in a second. But this here is also a way that you can get yourself a kind of a bench by putting a bunch of these together. Martin, it's also time now probably to talk about air tools and air compressors. Now, the setup in here is pretty wild because there's compressed air that is running all around the room. That is not a situation that you're going to need at home. You're going to need one simple air compressor. And Martin, my good friend, the Burgertron, is about to tell you all about it.
Now, why do you want compressed air? It's really, really useful. Now, these days, a lot of battery tools have actually replaced them. You don't need it so much for impact wrenches and you don't need it so much for those kind of tools, but what it's excellent for is painting. It's excellent for cleaning. You can run things like sandblasters. Even just having an air blower around at times to help you clean things up is absolutely invaluable. We do have multiple here so that we can run things like the blasting cabinets. That stuff is very greedy for air and needs a lot of it, but this is an absolutely excellent thing to have in your shed. And not only that, if you just get a little basic one, you can inflate tires really, really quickly. You can do all those kind of jobs, as well as painting, which I think is very useful. You're at level 4 now, so it's time to talk about welders. Now, you've probably got enough tools to make holes in things. What if you want to put things back together and they're made of metal? You're going to need a welder. Now, you can go down to Supercheap Auto or a place like it and get a very, very basic stick welder, which is the most simple kind of welder out there. Really good for joining big bits of metal together. But if you're into cars, more likely you're going to want a MIG welder or a TIG welder. Now, this one can do aluminium and steel. This one is mostly for steel. They're both very, very useful in their own ways. If you just want to do exhaust and basic things like that, a MIG welder is where you want to start. If you want to get a little bit more intricate, go for a TIG welder. The techniques to use them are different but easy to learn. Jump on the internet. There is a million tutorials out there on how to set your welder up, how to use your welder, and how to make some really cool stuff. And it does unlock some of the really fun things like exhaust and intercooler pipes and fabrication.
Martin, what's the difference between MIG and TIG?
MIG has a wire in it that's fed through a cable here from a big spool. It's got shielding gas around it, and it basically, like a hot glue gun, basically you're sticking the metal together, adding metal from here. TIG, all that's doing is melting stuff. You need to add your metal back in with a filler rod, or you can just fuse stuff together. This is better for fine details if you want to do aluminium, which is a very, very good skill to have. This is better if you're doing a lot of big stuff or you're doing exhaust, things like that. But have a bit of a read up on both. You'll probably find, or we have both here because there's often jobs that call for both, and they are both very, very, very awesome tools to have if you want to spend the money to do some cool fabrication.
What is the easiest one to get started on, just like, I just need to do some stuff at home, is going to be a MIG welder?
MIG. The only thing you're not going to be able to do easily is aluminium, but you might not need to at first, but a TIG will do both. It's the age-old question of which one's the best to get. I find the TIG to be the most versatile, about to do a lot of different things, but this is what you reach for when you just want to stick something together.
If you're welding metal, it means you're probably going to need to cut and trim it as well. And with a home garage, you want to try and get tools that are going to be as versatile as possible. And when it comes to cutting metal, of course, you could use something like a bandsaw, but when it comes to versatility, an angle grinder is going to be number one in terms of maneuverability. Now, while it is called an angle grinder, most of the time people are usually using these with a cutting disc. You can swap those discs out, and you can also run it with a flap disc, which is basically a whole bunch of sandpaper connected to a disc here. You can use it for removing excess material. You can clean up your welds with it. We stripped a whole car of paint with one of these, and the fact that you can take these discs off and change them means that you get a whole lot of versatility from just one tool, and having battery as well, like we have on this RYOBI one, is a game changer because you're not having cables that could get in the way. There are so many stories of people with angle grinders cutting through their cables. Of course, when you use this stuff, make sure you know what you're doing, wear all of the safety stuff, and now it might be time for something very exciting. You might be thinking, I've done all my basic maintenance stuff, I've done some mods, and it's time to engine swap my car. Yes, that is something that happens in stage 4, and there are a couple of things that you will need to help make that happen.
Engine swaps and changing engines is where the fun begins, but you do need some specialised equipment to do it, like this, which is an engine crane. And once you've got your old engine out and chucked it in the bin, you can save a bunch of money by changing the engine yourself, especially if you're buying nuggets off marketplace and you want to save a bit of money. Once you've got it out, you've got your new engine, you're going to want to put it onto an engine stand. This is a great way to do all the hard servicing that's normally very difficult inside the car, outside the car. You take the gearbox off, you bolt the engine on here, and you can flip it over, and it's really easy to work on.
Now, while it is possible to do all of that on your back, on the concrete with jack stands, what makes it a whole lot easier is something like this. This is a quick jack system. It's basically a hydraulic jack that you put a bit of pressure through that, and up it goes, and it gets your car a couple of feet off the ground. The 240Z here that's actually powered with an RB from a GTR was done in this space entirely on quick jacks. As you can see, there is quite a lot going on there, but it is possible, and it's a great in-between if you need some portability or maneuverability with where your equipment sits during the day or during the week in your home garage, and a great in-between that is between the floor and a proper hoist.
You've got your engine in and out and things are looking good, but there's a whole bunch of extra jobs that you still got to do. You're going to start to need to think about lubricants, paints, sealants, stuff like that. So you're going to need some grease. There's lots of different types of grease depending on the kind of job you're doing. You're going to need a bunch of different ones. Also paint, I like to use this sort of engine high temperature stuff in and around engine bays. It just looks good for longer. We've got CRC 5.56. This is a general purpose lubricant penetrant. Something like that, you're going to need that around your shed. And also sealant for doing sumps, gaskets, things like that. And of course, brake cleaner. Brake cleaner is one of the best things you can have in your shed, and it's time, people, for level 5. Let's go.
For a lot of people, the ultimate home garage workshop involves one of these. That is a hoist. You can get a 2-post, you can get a 4-post, you can get a belly lift, and if you've got the space for it, this is the perfect tool of getting your car up and down safely. You can also get ones that are not as high, depending on how much space you have, but if you've got a decent sized room and your slab can take it, then a hoist is an absolute must-do for a level 5 home garage setup.
Now, when you're in level 5, there's also a bunch of jobs that require this thing. This is a press. There's a lot of different versions. You can get basic desktop ones that are quite small. You can get ones like this, which are air activated. which can save you a lot of time. But this is great for doing suspension bushes and all those sort of jobs where you've got to push something out or pull something through. Great for doing suspension work, particularly an absolute must-do when you are on level 5.
A metal lathe is not something that you see in a lot of home workshops, but it can be a game changer. Basically, you put a bit of metal in here, there's a tool here, you can wind it in, making adapters, making spacers, modifying a part that's maybe almost right, but just a little bit too big, then that there can be a game changer. Of course, you can get lathes for all sorts of things. I got a wooden one at home, not made of wood, but made for wood, that you can make bowls and stuff like that with. It's a really handy thing to have and can get you out of a bind in a pickle. Speaking of pickling, do you need to clean your pickle? You might need to clean it in a pickle blaster.
This is a blasting cabinet. It uses a whole bunch of dried up pickles, and not really. It actually uses often a sand mix. Sometimes it can use a glass mix, and by pushing this stuff, spraying it onto a material via high pressure, via the gun, basically the air comes in through this hose and it sucks through here all this media up and then sprays it at very, very, very high velocity onto your part and strips it off. This is excellent, particularly when you're restoring old, scungy stuff. You can throw a lot of metal parts in there, blast them all back, paint them, and they look brand new. An absolute must-have in your level 5 workshop. Also, you can get very small versions of this. The bigger the blaster, obviously, the bigger the parts, but you don't have to get a massive one to kick off.
And that brings us to this, the fabrication station. Now, you may have been getting by before with your grinders and with your welder here. You can get yourself a vise there, but if you've got a station like this, it means you can actually mount things to all of these different holes for different positions. You can put magnets on there, you've got measuring on there, you've got your grinder next to it, and you basically set up that whole station for making things. And Martin, you've made all sorts of things on here, haven't you?
This has been absolutely excellent. Just also, you'll notice all the messy stuff is in the one spot. So the blaster makes mess, this makes mess, all those sort of things, then you can just sort of clean it out really easily. But this unlocks all that custom fabrication that makes projects extra, extra special and means you don't have to outsource it to other people. If you don't have a welder, you can take stuff away to get welded. If you need stuff cut, you can take it to get cut. Being able to do it by yourself in your own space means you can be really efficient at getting stuff done.
Hopefully that's given you some inspiration on how you can set up your home workshop with a bunch of different levels. And of course, if there's other things that are specific to your needs, you can mix and match from different levels. You might need a lathe, but you might not need a sandblaster. You might need an air compressor, but you don't need a welder. Of course, you can set it up how you need it. And if there's other things that you've got, tips and tricks or specific tools, we would love to hear all about it. So please dump a comment down below.
Now, it can take a while to get from level 1 to level 5. Level 1 might have been a long time ago and maybe you're just happy with that equipment and it does everything you need to do. You're happy just changing oil. You don't really want to do anything else. But if you do decide to progress, it gives you a bit of a guide, or at least how we've got to, I guess you'd call this level 5 now, over a long, long period of time. You also do see a lot of setups, dream garage setups out there that you might go, whoa, doesn't necessarily mean it's your dream. Yours doesn't have to be that perfectly set out. As much as we're always trying to clean this place and keep it tidy, this place gets used a lot. It's constantly dirty. There's constantly tools missing because stuff is happening and some pretty cool cars are coming out of the space. And that's really what it's all about. It's about making the cars, making them cool, and just actually enjoying the process.
A lot of the Instagram garages and stuff you see are not actually spaces that are being used. You can see everything is perfectly laid out, but they're not actually spaces that are being used to work on cars. There is a whole other world when it comes to detailing. So we didn't really even get into kind of vacuums and polishes and things like that, because that's kind of a whole different thing that's not specifically working on your car. Of course you want to keep it clean, but we could probably do a whole other video, and we probably will, about how you can set up parts of your workshop or home garage to detail your car. Certainly when I started, I had a XL200 motorbike and an old Mini, and I had a Toledo kit that I think my mum gave me for my 18th birthday, and I would use that and any old screwdrivers that my dad had in the garage that sometimes I would accidentally leave outside, and then he would run over them with the lawnmower and always yell at us.
And I had a bunch of hand-me-downs from my grandpa, grandpas on both sides actually, who were both pretty handy, and just bits and pieces that I've still got to this day, and then stuff I've added to my collection, and stuff I'll never get rid of because it lasts forever. That's the beauty of tools, particularly. So hopefully you've got some inspiration from this, for whatever level you're at, and you can see where you're headed to do some more automotive awesomeness.
And as a general rule, certainly this was the case with Marty and I, because we kind of met each other doing music and in recording studios. You buy the best equipment you can with the money that you have. I don't recommend going into debt and buying like the most expensive tool cabinets you have. You've got a truck that's coming around your local area, buying stuff from there. your equipment can change as your ability changes, and sometimes it's nice to level up as time goes on anyway. And there's lots of help out there on forums, internet, YouTube videos and things like that, so you can check those out. Do want to give a quick shout out to Supercheap Auto, who is a sponsor of the show. Tool Pro X, you can check out their stuff there.
And of course, RYOBI.
Yep, RYOBI, we've been using their tools for a couple of decades probably,
Yeah, sure.
and certainly since well before they were sponsors of the show. Castrol is also a sponsor, so a massive shout out to them. And Martin, I think that's about it.
That's it.
We've got some cars to work on that will
yes.
blow your wormhole 15 galaxies away. We've got a massive year. We're very, very excited about it.
Unexpected stuff.
Strange things. We got some European stuff. There's stuff from Japan coming. A few secret things, a few budget builds. But there is going to be a bunch of nuggety Facebook marketplace finds with a bunch of battles and a couple of overseas adventures as well. So thank you very much for watching Mighty Car Mods. See you soon on the channel, and we hope you enjoyed the video.